Hello and welcome. Let's start with Nigeria. In yet another assault in the country's northeast, Boko Haram terrorists have killed at least 63 people, including 5 soldiers. Late on Friday, terrorists attacked a village named Darul Jamal, which hosts a military base on the Nigeria-Cameroon border. The village is located in Bama Local Government Area, which lies in the central region of the Borno State, which has long been at the center of Boko Haram's insurgency. Recounting the deadly attack, residents said that dozens of fighters had arrived on motorbikes. They fired rifles, torched homes, and forced over 100 people to run for their lives.
They came and knocked on our door. When I opened it, they fired into the air, then entered the house and took away our belongings and food.
Following the attack, Nigerian Air Force said that it had killed at least 30 terrorists. But frequent attacks have raised questions on the ability of the Nigerian military to counter the terrorists.
We have to take note that the numerical strength of the Nigerian army is not enough to contain the situation.
We need maximum security deployment, but not like the ones we have, who may retreat from the fight and leave behind the lives of the civilians in danger.
Nigeria's homegrown terrorist, Boko Haram, took up arms in 2009 to fight Western education and to impose their radical version of Islamic law. Boko Haram attacks have killed around 40,000 people and have forced more than 2 million people to flee their homes so far. A decade ago, the Bama Local Government Area was the target of several Boko Haram attacks, following military operations in the area in recent years. Authorities had resettled the displaced people in several communities, including in Darul Jamal. Now, these people were promised that they will be safe, but now they are burying their dead again. The latest attack has raised questions over government's push in recent years to close down camps for internally displaced persons and return their inhabitants to the countryside.
Very sad. This community was resettled some months ago, and they are going about their normal businesses, but unfortunately they had a Boko Haram attack yesterday. So we are here purposely to commiserate with them and to build their resilience.
The latest attack comes amid a rise in terrorist activity in Nigeria's northeast. Boko Haram and its rival, the West African branch of the Islamic State group, have stepped up attacks in the region. Nigeria's fight against Boko Haram has become even more challenging following its neighbor Niger's withdrawal from a key multinational task force, which was set up to tackle the terrorist group. The junta-led Niger, along with its allies Burkina Faso and Mali, pulled out of ECOWAS, further complicating the fight against terrorist groups in the region. Along with Boko Haram insurgency, Nigeria is also grappling with frequent bandit attacks in the northwest, and the economic crisis under President Tinubu's government has irked the common people. And many armed groups like Boko Haram are capitalizing on these grievances to further spread terror in the region. And for more on this, we are being joined by Professor Freedom Onuoha, who is a security expert, joining us live from Nsukka, Nigeria. Thank you for being with us, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Nigeria has been closing displacement camps and resettling people back into vulnerable towns like Darul Jamal. Do you think that these policies are exposing civilians to greater danger? And what alternatives could the government pursue?
Yes, since the last 16 years, the Nigeria have been battling the Boko Haram insurgency. But since 2022, we have witnessed a fundamental increase in terms of the ability of security forces to recover and dominate some grounds. And this has also led to the push by the federal government, particularly Borno State government, to resettle some of the internally displaced persons and the refugees to their camps. In fact, between 2021 and 2024, over 17 of such camps have been closed, and then some of the IDPs have been returned to the original communities or communities believed to be resettlement centers by the state. But I think there's a whole lot of concern growing that given the persistence of insecurity, particularly in some of these rural areas, areas that do not have sufficient security forces and troops on ground, that such a return is heightening their vulnerability to be attacked. And then I think also the attack on Friday at Darul Jamal that led to the death of about 60 persons clearly revealed that some of those communities where IDPs are being returned remain largely vulnerable to attacks by this Boko Haram. But I think more fundamentally is that such recurrent attacks, clearly indicate that there are still some substantive issues and challenges regarding Nigeria's counter-terrorism and counter-insurgency responses that need to be actually critically overhauled, such that you can maintain the high level of security presence needed to deter such attacks from violent extremist groups on IDPs as well as people who have returned to their communities.
Right. And Professor, although the violence is lower than during Boko Haram's peak years, groups like the Islamic State West Africa province continue to strike. How has Boko Haram and its offshoots evolved in recent years? And what does this attack signal about their current strength and strategy?
I think that a close look at the trajectory of the violent extremist groups operating in the Lake Chad, particularly the Jamaat al-Husna al Jihad, which we call the JAS, and then the Islamic State West African Province, which is a splinter group from the Boko Haram, which is the JAS actually, had clearly indicated that we have seen fundamental shifts and changes in the terrorist landscape, which have really accounted for their resilience and adaptability. First, we need to understand that over time, we have seen this group increasingly embrace an insurgency strategy that involved them attacking, particularly during the rainy season, and then retrieving into the Tumbungs. The Tumbungs are also known the island in Lake Chad, where they have much more safe haven and opportunity to operate. So we have seen that fundamental shift in terms of their operational strategy of heightening attacks during the rainy season and receding during the dry season, because again, that's when the security forces have enough opportunity to counter them. The second point we have also seen against the backdrop of the evolving security landscape is the fact that these groups have increasingly compensated for their lack of control of territories and the diminution of their fighting forces with increasing embrace and deployment of new technologies, particularly drones that they are using for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. But more importantly, also trying to weaponize these drones. And so that embrace of technology, particularly drones, have then given them a kind of a competitive advantage in terms of monitoring, the real-time security situations around troop movement and around camps, and even informing the kind of plots they undertake, particularly attacking some of these military bases during the night, based on the kind of information they've generated from those ISR. But more importantly, I think we need to also understand why this evolution has also occurred, is that after the height of their intra-fractional confrontations in 2023, we saw that towards the end of 2024, that these groups have also reduced the kind of skirmishes between the two rival groups, and I mean the Jamaat al-Husna al Jihad, the JAS group, and then the Islamic State. So having reduced that intra-factional confrontation, it has now enabled them to free up spaces and attention, to focus on attacking state security forces. And more importantly, this has to be understood against the backdrop of the fact that we are now seeing the dispersal and diffusion of insecurity in Nigeria, whereby the Nigerian military has been involved in several fronts now, in the northwest, in the northeast, in the southwest, and a bit more in the southeast. So having dispersed a lot of forces that are available, And against the backdrop of their embrace of technology, we are now seeing, this kind of resurgence and recurrent attacks. But it does suggest that, there is need for Nigeria to begin to overhaul this counter-terrorism strategy. And I think the problem lies on capacity gaps. We require a system that involves the clear, code, and the build. So the military need to do the clearing, and the police force supposed to do the holding of the territory, while civilian authorities can then come back to do the rebuilding and support. What we now see is that there is a clear, absolute, and acute gap in policing capability, and so the military.
Yes. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Professor, for being with us on Firstpost Africa.
Firstpost now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
$36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
Geschäftsführenden Direktor,
Hindi,
$30 trillion kakarjo.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Sekali radikali.
Japanese,
4 兆ドル以上の
Portuguese,
por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select the language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. Firstpost.